5 minutes, Blue Peter. First on BBC One, John Craven's Newsround.
Back home from Rhodesia, the man who may have found a way to peace. Hello again. The British Foreign Secretary, Dr. David Owen, arrived back home today at the end of a week-long trip to Africa. It started out as just a fact-finding tour, but it ended up being something much more important, because David Owen had 2 long discussions with the Rhodesian leader, Mr. Smith, the first time for 6 years that a top British politician had met a man who this country thinks of as a rebel. That's because Mr. Smith and his fellow whites went against the feelings of the rest of the world when, nearly 12 years ago, they refused to hand over power in Rhodesia to the country's black majority. Dr. Owen, who became Foreign Secretary only 2 months ago, has been visiting Rhodesia and 7 other African countries, many of them neighbours of Rhodesia. Well, travelling with Dr. Owen was the BBC's Martin Bell, who's with me now. Martin, how did it all go?
Well, Dr. Owen hasn't yet succeeded, and a lot of African leaders don't think that he will. They don't trust the white Rhodesian government, and they say the only way for the Africans to take over the country is to go on fighting for it. But Britain's Foreign Secretary believes there is still a chance of a peaceful solution to the problem of Rhodesia. And in his travels round Africa, he's managed to persuade a surprising number of people, both black and white, that he might just be right. Besides meeting many of the leaders involved, Dr. Owen has actually been to Rhodesia to see for himself, here in an African township, how people live, and to talk to them about the kind of country they want to live in, how it should change peacefully, and how the whites, the government led by Ian Smith, can be persuaded to hand over power. A great deal depends on whether Dr. Owen and the Africans think they can trust Mr. Smith, and a start has been made with Dr. Owen on his flying visits from country to country, trying to clear away some of the suspicion which always prevented a settlement in the past. He may still fail, but he has come over as a new man with new ideas which just might work.
Well, now to America and the problems facing Concord. As you know, lots of people living near Kennedy Airport are very much against the idea of Concord landing there in New York for a trial period. They say the plane is far too noisy, and yesterday they staged a big protest. They'd hoped to block all the roads leading to Kennedy Airport with their cars, bringing the place to a standstill. But instead of the 2,000 cars they'd expected, only 600 turned up. Instead of clogging up the airport with their cars and banners, they only managed to slow things down for 45 minutes. The protesters had ignored a judge who said the demonstration shouldn't take place, but they say they'll be trying again soon. An unusual scheme has just been brought in by a sheep farmer from Grassington in the heart of the Yorkshire Dales. To protect his young lambs against the harsh weather they've been having there, he's fitted them with sheep-sized plastic mats. Here's a report from Ken Cooper.
In the Yorkshire Dales, the weather is still threatening newly born lambs. Hundreds of them die of exposure every year. For the farmer, it's the worst time of year, as he tries to protect the weaker twin lambs from the elements. But one farmer has solved the problem by putting his lambs in plastic mats.
Where a single one would probably get a good feed before the cold weather started on a night. The twins have to share what there is, and sometimes a little one doesn't get so much. But they can survive if the body heat's kept in with these mats.
And the idea's certainly working. This year, Mr. Darwin hasn't lost a single lamb.
In Walsall, near Birmingham, a last attempt today to stop the council knocking down an old man's house. It's the home of Philip Cheetham, and according to the council, it's got to come down because it's unsafe. But they hadn't bargained for Mr. Cheetham's electronic skills when they made their decision. Alan Towers explains.
The house is one of 7 due to be demolished, but Mr. Cheetham insists his place is perfectly sound, and he's determined to stay. As the bulldozers move in, he has surrounded himself with electronic wizardry which he believes will repel the bailiffs. With his electronic probe and special helmet, Mr. Cheetham was out this morning checking on the progress of the bulldozers. bamboo cane it may be, but according to Mr. Cheetham, it sends signals back to the special electronic helmet. Inside the cramped little house, there's a sensitive alarm which identifies callers. An electronic scanner tells if prowlers are about. And inside the walls, there's an electronic force which can give unwelcome guests a bit of a shock. Bulldozers or not, Mr. Cheetham says he'll remain in his house.
I've told them this, yes, so the blood is on their hands if they insist on doing this, yes.
Well, finally tonight, in the luxurious American resort of Miami, a remarkable new sport is getting a real grip on thousands of fans. Ike Siemens of American television has the details.
It's not a surfboard and it's not a sailboat. It's called a windsurfer, and once it's in the water, it really moves. The sport started about 10 years ago in California and is now popular wherever the surf's up. The rider literally becomes a part of the windsurfer and acts as its rudder. While windsurfing is usually just for fun, there are competitions too, which are open to the estimated 10,000 persons who participate in this sport. There are regattas in which races against the clock are run on courses similar to those used in sailboat racing.
And that's enough to give anybody the wind up, isn't it? That's all from Newsround tonight. See you again, I hope, at the same time tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.